got a special announcement to make as per the title of the video. Let's talk about the infamous 6-speed swap. So basically, unless you own an STI, you've probably either have heard about this or thought about this or dreamed or wished about this, but the STI 6-speed is just kind of the thing that most Subaru owners who don't already own one want. So that's the next project that we're going to do. So the first thing that usually turns people off from this project is the price tag, and I think I may have found a way to be able to do this project cheaper for actually more than half the price of what you'd usually pay for this project. Holy cow, son. Let's talk about what people usually think you have to do, and let's talk about the price it requires to do said thing. So if you want to put an STI transmission in, you're going to need more than just the transmission. You're going to need the STI Driveshaft. You're going to need the STI R180 rear differential. You're going to need the STI front and back axles. You're going to need the knuckles. You're going to need the big Brembo brakes, the big Brembo rotors. You're going to need a shifter assembly for the STI 6-speed. You're going to need a clutch fork for the STI 6-speed. You're going to need a DCCD controller if you have a transmission that has the driver-controlled center differential. So, all that being said, let's assume that you're doing it yourself, so there's no labor cost for a garage. You're looking at about $6,000. Yeah, that's a pretty penny to be paying just for a drivetrain swap. And the whole thing that you really want, besides that R180 differential, which is pretty nice, but you're just trying to get that 6-speed because, let's be honest, the 5-speed is known for being weak, and the gear ratios are horrible. I have a car with a 2-liter. It's a low compression engine because it relies on boost, and I have boost lag because of my front end intercooler and a bigger turbo. So you pair all that with the poor gear ratios, and it's really hard to accelerate, and just daily driving is kind of a pain in the balls. First to second especially, there's almost a 1500 RPM gap between first and second. That's a lot of RPMs for an engine that has no torque, no compression, and requires boost to make any notable power. So, miniature rant aside, I've done my research and I found a way to do the 6-speed swap in a Subaru cheaper than half the price of, $6,000. The way I'm going to do it won't require me to get Brembo brakes. It won't require me to worry about STI axles or drive shafts or differentials. Yeah, the way I'm going to do it, firstly, you need to recognize that the STI transmission throughout the years had different final drive ratios. So depending on which STI transmission you go with, you may or may not need to get a rear differential. Earlier Subarus, the WRXs we're talking about, not STIs. That's a nice Monte Carlo. Damn, this sun is bright. Earlier WRXs have, and we're talking about the 5-speed manuals, the rear differential ratio is 3.54. So if you get an STI transmission that has a final drive ratio of 3.9, you're either going to chew up your differential or you're going to chew up your transmission. So you're going to need to find a rear differential that has a 3.9 gear ratio, unless you find a 2006 to 2007 STI transmission. And that transmission has the 3.54 ratio, which is what you want if you have a WRX 5-speed, because then you get to retain your rear differential without swapping that out. Unfortunately, finding an 0607, also known as the Hawkeye STI, finding that transmission, for some reason, is more difficult. I see a lot of 2004 STI transmissions, they have the 3.9 ratio, and I see a lot of JDM transmissions, and they also have a 3.9 ratio. So, it's up to you, really. You can find 3.9 rear differentials, but it's kind of difficult, because the 3.9 rear differential that is not an R180, that's an R160, was only found in the 5-speed Subarus, like the Imprezas and the RSs. No turbo models had the 3.9, besides the STI. But you can't get the R180 rear differential without changing out the rear axles, which requires you to change out the rear knuckles, which could require you to get the Brembos. It gets expensive fast. 3.7 STI transmission, or find yourself a 3.9 rear differential out of a wrecked Impreza or Legacy Outback that's a 5-speed. Subarus are like Legos, honestly. All the parts are interchangeable between the years and the models, and it's crazy. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting the 3.9 ratio differential. A, because I found one with 50,000 miles, and this car has 143, so I'll be getting a fresh rear differential, kind of. And it also allows me to choose from more STI transmissions. I'm not locked down to just the 2006 to 2007. I have basically 2002 to 2005, which is a greater range of, possibilities for transmissions. You're going to need a different drive shaft. The WRX 5-speed drive shaft will not work. I don't know how to explain it, but it just won't work. Again, the cheap way to do this is not buy the STI part. Obviously, you have an STI transmission, you get the STI drive shaft. Alternatively, you can do yourself a favor, save a few bucks, buy an automatic drive shaft. A drive shaft for an automatic transmission. Automatic drive, come on people, just drive, it's green. You got it. The STI drive, or the automatic drive shaft will bolt right up to your rear differential, and it will fit in your STI transmission. Another reason not to go with the STI drive shaft is because it will not bolt right up to your rear differential. You're going to have to mod it. You're either going to have to buy yourself a yoke, is that what it's called? Or you're going to have to drill out holes. It's just the holes aren't right. It won't bolt up properly. So yeah, we have the R160 3.9 rear differential that I'm going to be getting, and we have the automatic drive shaft. Another thing you're going to need is male front axles. I believe 2002 to early 2004 has female front axles, so my transmission has these stubs that come out of it, and that's what the axle goes to. Every year after that, Subaru has male axles, so the STI transmission has female spot for the male axles. So you're gonna have to find male axles, which isn't hard. Any Subaru WRX, I think 2005 and on, has the male axles, and you might not even need that. Just you're gonna have to check to see what you have. I have the female though, I know that for a fact. So I had to buy myself a pair of those. Next up is the STI transmission mount. So basically under your car you have a cross member that holds your transmission in place so it doesn't just rattle around and break, fall out under your car, kill people. There's a piece of metal that bolts to the bottom of your chassis, and there's a little rubber mount that sits between the transmission and the cross member. And unfortunately they are different between the WRX and STI. Unfortunately, the WRX transmission mount is about a half an inch taller than the STI transmission mount, which means that if I reuse this transmission mount, which I can, but if I do, the transmission itself is actually going to be rattling against my transmission tunnel, my drive shaft tunnel. The STI transmission is definitely bigger than the WRX transmission, so that half inch matters. So you're going to need to source yourself an STI transmission. What are you doing, Ben? Your four ways are on and you're just driving. Anyways, I recommend finding a transmission that comes with the shifter assembly and the clutch fork. It'll save yourself a headache and save you some money potentially. But those are two other things you're going to need. You're going to need the STI 6-speed clutch fork, and you're going to need, obviously, the shifter assembly. After that, besides fluids and maybe gaskets here and there, you should be okay. If you have extra money, that'd be the time to upgrade your bushings for your driveline. Everything I listed there, besides the STI transmission itself, you should be able to find for $500 to $600, and that's not bad at all. I get asked a lot where I find these used Subaru parts. So basically, eBay is your friend, and so are junkyards. And I don't know where you live, but where I live, Subarus are everywhere. Not gonna lie, I kind of get sick of seeing them. I love my car, don't get me wrong, but man, Subarus are just way too popular. That being said, depending on where you live, you should have no problem finding used Subaru parts. And if you do have a problem finding one locally, eBay. There are Japanese importers. They're a dime a dozen on eBay. They import parts from Japan, and they usually sell them for a decent price. So you just gotta know what you're looking for. You gotta know how to use Google and eBay and how you use search engines. So yeah, you should be able to pick all those parts up for, I'd say, between like $480 to $600 used parts. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. That would be the 6-speed. No joke, that thing is big. It's probably 70 pounds heavier than my transmission. It's definitely bigger. It dwarfs my transmission for sure. But the gear ratios are way more solid. The gears are stronger. It's just better in every way. Better than the 5-speed. So finding an STI 6-speed will be probably more difficult than finding oh man, here we go. Yeah, finding an STI 6-speed will probably be more difficult than finding like regular super parts. Mainly because people are vultures, and the second an STI is totaled or decommissioned from the road, people will jump on that car instantly to get whatever parts they can off of it. If you have an STI and you total it, God forbid, part it out. You will make way more money than just selling it outright. In my opinion, unless you can find one locally on Craigslist or something, your best bet's probably eBay with the Japanese importers. First of all, there's way more options. Second of all, eBay sellers take their feedback very seriously. So they don't try and screw you over. You go on Craigslist, a guy can say, oh yeah, it has 20,000 miles on it, works great. You buy it, turns out it has 120,000 miles on it, and fourth gear is blown. So on eBay, I'm just saying, in my opinion, you have a better chance of getting how the item is described rather than Craigslist. People just trying to make a couple bucks. So be prepared to spend around $1,800 to $2,500 on the transmission itself. The Japanese bug-eye transmissions are non-DCCD, which basically is a power controller. It allows you to control if the power is going to the rear more than the front, or if you want it to even out 50-50. I really don't care about that. So in my humble opinion, if you're looking for a 3.9 ratio transmission, get the bug-eye transmission, the STI bug-eye transmission. It is probably the cheapest STI transmission you can get. It is non-DCCD, so you never have to worry about wiring or anything like that. Next up, if you're looking for 3.9 ratio transmissions, I would get a USDM 2004 STI transmission, because that is next up on the leaderboard per se. In terms of price, you're going to spend everywhere from like $2,000 to $2,200. And you know, as you go up the line in years, like the Hawkeyes, they're probably going to cost you $2,300 to $2,500. So yeah, like I said, when buying a transmission, make sure you read the description on the eBay page. Does it work? Does it come with what it's pictured? You know, does it have a shifter assembly? Does it have a clutch fork? If it has all that, you're good. So we listed off the axles, the drive shaft, the transmission mount, the rear differential, and the transmission. Depending on how much you found all these parts for, you're probably sitting at around $2,300 to $2,500 right now. Still, more than half the price of doing it the STI way, and just swapping everything from an STI over. Now your next question might be, what about the clutch, flywheel, and pressure plate and all that jazz? In the clutch slave cylinder. That is all interchangeable. You can put your 5-speed clutch, your flywheel, and your all that stuff, you put that from your WRX into the STI. Obviously the STI 6-speed clutch and pressure plate are better, but you can swap over your WRX stuff. It'll fit. Just make sure you have the 6-speed clutch fork, or else your clutch will just never grab. The 5-speed clutch fork just doesn't work. Next up is the starter motor. Starter motors between STI and WRXs are the same. You can just swap yours over if it works. Clutch slave cylinder, interchangeable. All interior stuff is fine. Don't have to worry about that. Cross member works great. And as far as I know, ECU related stuff, I don't think you need to worry about getting a tune. So that's the project at hand. I don't know when I'm going to get around to doing it. I haven't even decided where I'm going to do it, but I do want to do it. I don't want a garage to do it for me. Although it is always an option. You're looking at another $1,000 in labor, assuming you have all the parts. Because if you don't, then you're not only wasting their time, they might charge you more, but you're wasting your time, obviously, because that's more time your car's off the road. Because once your 5-speed's pulled, there's no going, I mean, there is going back, but you know what I mean. There's not like, oh, I'm just going to take a break from this project and drive my car. No, your car's down until you get that transmission in, whether it be the 5-speed or the 6-speed. So keep that in mind as well. Don't jump the gun on the project unless you know you have everything to do it. So yeah, that's the plan. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to do it. And this is a terrible road for a garbage truck to be on, so I'm going to turn my stuff off before I die. I will see you guys later. Peace out.